Welcome. We are here to talk agency, retailer, brand collaboration and why retail media is changing the stories. So let's just dive straight in. Evan, why is retail media changing the way that agencies and brands work together? What's going on?
Great question, John.
It's your question.
It's my question. That's right. The reason we exist as a retailer and the reason we have a seat at the table in the media game, retail media, is because we move units, right? The reason a retailer exists, the reason CPGs want to work with us, and the relationships that they established 50, 100 years ago with some of these retailers is to get products off a shelf. Marketing then was a proxy to that core reason for being, right? And it's a step away from that core, but it's a very powerful and important piece. You can tell brand stories, you can introduce products to new shoppers, you can put things on discount. It's an important tool, but it's just, to Liz's point earlier, it's a piece of the flywheel. The flywheel doesn't exist without a product on a shelf leaving to a shopper, right? Ideally with some trackable ID data to then prove the performance of the media. Every step we take away from that truth set is a step towards ambiguity and grayness. And if you're a company that doesn't move products off shelves, you're living in a consistently gray box, right? So sorry, agencies, you don't own the relationship. You can partner with companies like Attain and other data brokers to get at simulacrums of point-of-sale data, right? Samples, surveys, panels, email harvesting. But the core shopper experience lives with the retailer, like it or not. We, though, have an onus to upgrade our services so that we can be as good as the agencies with rates and price points and service levels, and we can partner together to do that. And what a great opportunity to start that partnership here at Cannes as we launch some of our new in-store channels. We need the agencies to partner with us to bring our core reason to being to life.
So it's interesting. If I hear you right, are you saying that there's now two parties trying to work very directly with the brands, and therefore the relationship between the agency and the brand is going to be somewhat different in the retail media category?
I think it can be different. We're opening the door. We're opening our arms. We're looking for partners to come and show us some of the great things that they can do, the creatives, the storytelling, the national branding, stuff that RMNs historically haven't been great at. And we can connect together to solve the CPG's core problem, which is centralization, simplification, remove friction, to get closer to the truth, which is moving products off shelves.
Okay, super interesting. Sean, give us your take on this question. Why does retail media change the way that agencies and brands collaborate and work together? And please, tell us a bit about your role.
Oh, sure. So I'm Sean McGahey. I'm the head of retail media at Google. And so my role is focused on helping retail media networks use Google solutions towards their aims, right? So everything from our media properties to our technology, how can the best of Google help this market grow? And I think the core to your question and to some of what Evan mentioned is the data, right? I think retailers have a data set that if any agency could have it on their own, like they would kill for, right? The depth of knowledge on the shopper experience that retailers have is the reason why we're in the south of France talking about retail media every year, right? And so I do think that the exposure and the access to that data has changed the brand and agency dynamics. I think the ability to integrate with the trade practice and move products off a shelf for marketing has really been a huge change. But CPGs also have the challenge of working with so many retailers that if the reporting that they were getting from each retail media network were true, their businesses would be 3x the size that they are. And I feel that agencies have a core responsibility to help them understand across the ecosystem and advise their brand partners on where is the best place to spend that next dollar. And so I think the collaboration between these retail media networks and the agencies is vital. And as Google, we're an ecosystem player, right? So our customers are the retailers, the brands, and the agencies in this environment. And so we're leaning into how we can use our solutions to empower the ecosystem to grow.
And just briefly, you mentioned Google as an ecosystem player. You obviously have one of the most extraordinary ecosystems in the space. How do you slot into the retail media category?
I would think of us first from an off-site retail media standpoint. So how do you use the retailer's data to extend the reach of the audiences and the reach of that product feed that they have to channels like search, shopping, where search is search, the biggest advertising platform in the world. YouTube is the #1 platform on CTV devices. How can we leverage the scale that we have at Google with the great data that retailers have. And from a tech standpoint, looking at all of our solutions in a managed service and self-service capacity, so that no matter how the market wants to execute the campaigns, that you can do so in either model to serve the ecosystem overall.
So, Dawn, you've heard that. Tell me, how does an agency like Spark Foundry fit into this picture? And what's your take on this question? Does it change the way you work with your clients and customers?
Yes, so I feel enabled to talk about this question because I've actually been client side longer than I've been agency side. So working at Procter & Gamble, working at Coca-Cola, I worked with agency partners. I worked with the retailers. So I have a pretty good catbird seat of like how all of this works. And I would say the fun special sauce about retail media is that retail media is both a channel, but it's also a layer, and it's a layer of data that every one of our clients is thinking about how can they use. And they're comparing the audience data available for each retailer with the existing set of audiences that they're working on, right? And so retailers like Albertsons, et cetera, may be able to provide an audience that they normally couldn't find someplace else. So I think the role of an agency partner, if our clients could do it themselves, they would, and many of them do in-house, and many of our clients go back and forth. They in-house, they outhouse, they in-house, they outhouse, right? And so our role as an agency partner is to help them think through. Every one of the retailers has a little bit, they're all snowflakes. Each one of them has a different offering. And so it's really hard and challenging for clients to keep up with all of the changes. And that is our job across multiple clients, is to say, these are the differences. Here's tools and tech that can help you figure out where is the next best dollar and where should you spend it. So I don't see a world where an agency doesn't have a role in retail media, but I think the role that agencies are playing is different, right? Especially as it goes from managed service to self-service, and as we look at the full ecosystem of everything from CTV to off-site display to on-site display and search. So there couldn't be a more exciting time to be in retail media.
No, I mean, we're seeing huge change. It's fascinating. So we're obviously in a big, diverse media and advertising ecosystem. You know, there's waves of innovation. Just walk down the Croisette. There's a lot of very cool stuff happening. Developments in search, CTV, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. How does retail media plug into this category? And to your question, does it plug in a way that particularly suits in-housing or outsourcing? Does the role of the agency change because of the tools that are available from people like Albertsons and Google? Why don't we start with you, April, and then we'll work back down.
Yeah, so if an agency doesn't change, they're dead. So we're changing every single day, right? And we are trying to figure out what are the best tools and tech that can enable our clients to be able to leverage the entire media ecosystem. I think there's a lot of independent startup agencies that have made quite a name for themselves, being one specific retailer specific. There's a lot of bespoke Amazon agencies. There's now a growing, bit of, there's some Target agencies that sit in Minneapolis. There's agencies that sit in Bentonville for Walmart, right? And so we've got clients trying that model too. They're saying, okay, I'm going to use a different, small agency that is, connected to the retailer, understand what the merchant's priorities are, walk in the halls of the merchant, right? And then we find that gets challenging, and then they come back to us and say, okay, we need somebody who can see across the ecosystem. So our role as agencies is to continually be chameleons and to change with how media is changing and how retailers are progressing on their maturity transformation of becoming true media platforms.
Because, Evan, let's jump to you. Retail media doesn't exist in a silo. Obviously, it has to plug into this bigger ecosystem. So are you spending a lot of time thinking about your connectivity with CTV platforms, with different data and identity solutions, with all of the other stuff that's keeping marketers busy at the moment?
Yeah, we certainly spend the majority of our initial launch years connecting to those ID graphs and then all the major publishers that are going to be where we find our customers and can show them the appropriate messaging. So Google was an early adopter for on-site with GAM, off-site with YouTube and DV360. That I would consider retail, media chapter 1. And that really services our managed service remit, which is generally where we start, right? It's a a premium package. It's a white glove service. You get the reports explained to you in earnest. But the price points can be a little bit of a friction point, especially for an agency who has a lot of the same capabilities, oftentimes better capabilities in some of the channels, certainly on a creative side or a rate card side. Or at least they think they do, and they're the ones representing a very large part of the CPG budget, the national dollars. So outside of managed service going to shopper and shopper budgets, I think that's just a natural, perfect alignment. We have to then figure out a way to serve that CPG at the national level. So to answer your question, we then have to show up with a much more easy onboarding process. We call it self-serve. So the agency can pick and choose which parts of our asset pool they want to use and then where they want to use it. So our mantra there is make our assets as modular and portable as possible and put them in the places people play today. That's SSPs, DSPs. In the case of Spark, you have your favorites. Tell us where to put our assets, and those assets should expand into anything that's going to add value. That can be certainly closed-loop measurement, audiences, but there's a whole host of retail information and insights that don't exist yet in a perfect agency RMN relationship, and we're here to build that. We want to be first to market with that type of capability. Think like shelf health, price and promo, store penetration. These are very hard-working mechanics that our stores and merchants know inside out, and we can make that available so that agency media as well as retail media can perform optimally for the CPG. Something's out of stock, you should know that. Something's on promo, we're going to sell it like hotcakes. You should also know that, and we can win together with the CPG.
I mean, Sean, if I hear these two right, the systems integrators have a very busy period at this point in time. How do you deal with this? I mean, it sounds bewilderingly complex.
Yeah.
Is the industry on top of keeping it simple?
Well, I think to think about it simply, we should really go back to the customer journey and the actual journey that shoppers are on between the moment where they're getting inspired to the moment a product leaves the shelf. And one thing we see at Google is, on average, there are about 10 touch points that a customer interacts with before they actually make a purchase, right?
Wow.
And so it does feel very complex, and it does feel like you need to be everywhere all the time, all at once, for you to influence them to convert. But across those 10 touch points, there are some really consistent touch points that we see almost all the time. One of those being searching behavior, that across every customer touch point for shopping, we see a search happen. That could be a search on Google, that could be a search on the retailer website. Another behavior we see is, we call it scrolling behavior. And so that's, someone's in their social media channel scrolling. For us, we see it across scrolling on YouTube Shorts, scrolling for their next video for YouTube. We see streaming behavior. And then we see the integration of shopping across all those behaviors. And so when we take a consumer lens and we think, okay, how do we show up in the moments that we know are consistent across every shopper journey, it makes it a little bit easier to prioritize and focus your efforts as a retail media network and as a publisher. Versus chasing absolutely everything, it's not always incrementally adding value. And so, yes, there's a lot of systems integrations and tech and API conversations and going through each other's legal teams and all of that stuff in the background, but we're doing it in the goal of influencing shopper journeys to lead to conversion across the 4 main touch points that we see across the industry.
Can I just add one piece to that? Not to do your job for you, Sean, per usual. But Google started with, I don't know, it wasn't accidental, but it turned out to be a powerful piece of retail media relationship building, which is hard for other DSPs and SSPs to do. And I don't think there's a single one out there that has this integration. I'm talking about hardcore item data accuracy and ingestion. Daily SKU level in stocks, price and item, imagery, all the descriptors necessary to make a purchase online has been integrated into your search tools, and then by proxy some of the other tools from day one, not for retail media, but for powering search. Like enterprise wanting to drive search to their .com needs that item feed to be integrated. So inherently we have a taxonomy, we have a clean way for a PepsiCo to trust that our item data is over there. And then separately, the enterprise has embedded all of our store information. Which of our 2,300 Albertsons has a pharmacy? Which has a fuel station? What are their hours? All of that's been ingested into your Maps feature. When you talk about locality and specific conversion drivers, item-specific SKU level, strategies for an agency and a brand to lean into, You guys have that tech built. I don't think there's a competitor out there that has that.
Not at our scale, no.
Yeah.
I wanted to add a piece
Please.
too. Evan, you mentioned out of stocks. As a commerce media agency, we care a lot about out of stocks because we don't want to drive media to a product that the shopper can't buy. So, back to the tools and tech and what's needed to be a great agency partner, we have a tool called Shelf Intelligent Media. So we're thinking about using partners like Profitero, that's owned by Publicis. They're giving us all the signals of what's happening on the retail shelf. Is it A+ content? Is the video loading? Is the product out of stock? And then we're able to build custom algorithms, and we are able to pause bidding on any product that's out of stock. And or if your competitor's out of stock, then we can go conquest your competitor at a much lower CPM. So tech and tools are the name of the game.
Well, I was going to ask, just before we move on,
Yeah.
10 years ago, there was this big debate about whether agencies could cultivate and develop the technology skills that they were going to need to help clients survive and thrive in a world that Evan and Sean had just described, which is a complicated world.
Yes.
It sounds like that's going just fine.
Well, what I would say is every agency is trying to figure out, do you build it yourself or do you buy it? And we're all doing both, right? So if somebody else has a slick, widget, we just buy them and we make it better, right? Or we try to build it ourselves. And so you would be surprised how many data scientists work at a media agency now.
Wow.
Could I add a third option, April?
Yeah.
Partnership, right? I think we're very happy to partner with you on that.
Yes.
And I think the industry is hungry for, I've spent my career at retail media, for some strong direction. And that can come from a CPG demanding, like they're always going to have an AOR. Now that's one consistent piece of a complicated puzzle. You could say big agencies are similar to retail media in that there's lots of different ones, lots of different technology, but the CPG only has to choose one, and now they've simplified. RMN's not quite as easy. But the agency can make it easy for the brand to connect to all 5 or 10, however many they need to partner with. We would love to hear a strong voice saying Profitero is the #1 way to go for item integration, or we're all going to lean on this Google search capability to solve for store hours. Then we can build to that, and you don't have to buy. We would love to partner there. RMNs that lean into that kind of strategy are going to benefit in an advantageous way on the traffic that would come from that, or save a shopper from coming to our store when it is out of stock because we've perfectly integrated with you. Everybody wins, but mostly the CPG. I would say there's just a lack of direction and voice on where RMNs should go with that kind of tech.
So, quick question then. How does retail media fit into your campaign planning, into budgeting? When you start thinking about your market mix models and investment, talk us through where retail media slots in now.
So there's a lot of stats out there about how much of a traditional CPG client's budget is sitting in retail media. Across the range of 14 clients I work with, it's anywhere from 20 to 78% of their budget is on retail media. What constitutes a client's decision of how much to spend in retail media is oftentimes based on the number of brands. So if they're a large company that owns a lot of brands, each individual brand doesn't have a lot of dollars and very minimal budgets. So retail media is the best next dollar to drive sales and conversion. Some bigger clients that have fewer brands and bigger budgets, retail media is often a smaller percentage because they have often different marketing goals in terms of household penetration, awareness. But my advice to every single client is retail media can help you on any piece of, I hate the funnel, but no one else knows what to call it. But the tunnel, I don't know. Any place, where shoppers are receptive, there's a retail media solution for it. And that's how we are. For our biggest clients, we have teams just for each retailer platform that are looking at that full omni-commerce experience.
I'm surprised to hear that percentage so high. Do you
Yeah.
think that's unique to Spark because you guys are a little more advanced on the retail relationship side?
I can't speak for others. I just know that our job is to give our clients the recommendation of the best investment that will drive the best return.
Let's talk quickly then about measurement. It's my wheelhouse. Sean, what are the new opportunities for measurement and attribution that retail media is really driving? Obviously, it's transformational in many respects from an attribution point of view.
For sure. I'll always say one of the great assets in retail media is its measurement. and one of the biggest pain points in retail media is its measurement. The
Big head nods.
right, like the amount of data that you have and the proximity to the point of purchase is just, we haven't seen anything like it in marketing. Like, it's phenomenal, right? But the lack of, I don't like standardization. I don't think that we'll ever have true standardization in this industry, but if we can at least get to consistency, that would be nice. And there is like a lack of consistency in the market. And also, as most retail media networks, because they have the data, they're grading their own homework. And if you were to really combine, I think you told me this, that the math ain't mathin'. Like, fundamentally, the ROAS that's being reported from these retail media networks.
I had a client tell me that they added up all the ROAS promised to them by the retail media networks, and it equivalized to the GDP of a country.
Yeah, it's not working. And so I think where we think retail media measurement is headed is an emphasis on incrementality versus right. Just the straight ROAS. We think about it from a triangulation standpoint, that there's the attributed ROAS, there's incrementality tests, and there's MMM, and the truth is in the middle, and that you need to be constantly and consistently understanding the attributed ROAS, doing an incrementality test, taking the results of those incrementality tests, and modifying your MMM and your attribution or approach to get somewhere closer to the truth. And as we see retail media mature, right, I think most of the networks, I think about 60% of the networks that exist launched in 2022. And so we're still very early. It's still a maturing market. And I think as agencies' demands increase, brand demands increase, they want to actually see those products moving off the shelf, and it's not just attributed ROAS, but it's real sales. We're going to see more development in the measurement space, but as an industry, we're not there yet today.
And there's one KPI that exists in retail media that doesn't exist in any other media. Does anyone know? It's RORR, Return on Retailer Relationship.
I feel there's a secret sauce in there somewhere.
I think it is.
You hat tip. There is a red light flashing here, but I have to say this is fascinating. So we're going to do one more closing question just to take us home. Evan, what do you expect to see over the next 12 months in the retail media category? I mean, there's so much happening, it's kind of hard to keep track. But the big things that you're expecting to see in the next 12 months are...
Yeah, I just don't want to miss the opportunity to document Google calling out another industry for being difficult to work with and lack of transparency. I don't want to kind of drop the mic. But,
touché.
But Sean has single-handedly turned some of that ship around, so congrats to you. Where we're headed, I think it's an egoless approach to solving the CPG's core reason for being, and that means showing up with defensible, portable access to our assets in any way that an agency or others, an in-house, wants to use them. So if they want managed service, self-serve on their favorite SSP, we should be there with a horse in that race, right? With the proper monetization strategy on top of that, of course. And we can get there with tough partnerships or good partnerships with capable ad tech companies. So self-service on a YouTube, why isn't that on all of our roadmaps? Integration with Google's Meridian MMM. We already have that through our TransUnion, so we're transparent with any agency bought retail media through us. We'll put it into their MMM model, no problem, because we want our stuff to be defensible. Black boxes aren't good for anybody. And so transparency at the core, but really it's maximizing access to our assets. So including our in-store display network that launched at Cannes this year. We have a strategy for making that accessible to anyone who wants to buy it.
Cool. Sean, the next 12 months, you will be accountable for these predictions.
All righty. So the growth of self-service. I think over the next 12 months, we're going to go from a market where it's 80-20 managed to self to more 50-50 managed to self.
Should April be worried?
No, I think April should be happy that where agencies will be getting more direct access to these great assets and inventory. 2, incrementality. Right. I think the days of the ROAS report being enough are done, and I think the more that you can show incremental sales will be a requirement.
You're expecting improvements in that space?
Yes, over the next 12 months, that there won't be a retail media network that's not talking about their approach to incremental ROAS. Okay. And 3, creative. We didn't talk too much about creative, but in general, retail media creative is not great. And so I do think over the next 12 months, retail media networks are going to take the infrastructure of all the tech developments they've been doing for the past few years and prioritize how do we tell better stories? How are we influencing and more convincing in our strategy and not just taking national brand creative and throwing our logo on the side and calling it a retail media creative asset. And so I think over the next 12 months, those are the 3 focus areas I would look at.
I love it. Final word.
There's only one thing that we need to all be thinking about for the next 12 months, and that's the role of AI agents on retail search, or in search in general. So the bots are going to be determining what we look at and how that information comes to us. So we're already creating GEO. So we already do SEO, SEM. Now we're doing GEO, which is generative engine optimization. So
This is basically marketing to bots.
marketing to bots.
Wow.
I might be a bot. You don't know.
Phil, next year this panel will almost certainly be 4 bots talking. Listen, that's been fascinating. We could have gone for another hour. Thank you so much, guys.